That's a list of ways somebody could get at my client's files, and the app it's describing is one I finished about an hour ago and rather liked. It goes live this week for a law firm, so the files we're talking about are passports, bank statements, somebody's mortgage paperwork, the deeds to a house they bought last month. The one at the top says the documents table can be reached by more people than I meant it to be, which in English means anybody who can be bothered to make an account can read every client's uploads. Anyone who's ever built a form that takes files has done that at some point, myself very much included, and normally you find out a long time later, if you find out at all. So let me show you the app, and then the fix and the screen that made me read exactly what was going into it first.
The client is Priya. She runs a small firm, 3 solicitors, wills and probate mostly, and the way a new client starts working with her right now is that she emails them asking for a pile of documents, and they email the pile back to an inbox all 3 of them share, and then it sits there, forever. Nobody has ever emptied a shared inbox at a small firm. That's not a thing that happens, and Priya knows it. She's not comfortable with it. She just hasn't had an option that didn't involve hiring someone like me for a month and a half. Which is the daft part really, because it's too small a job to be worth a proper build, and it's also the most private paperwork those people own, sitting in a mailbox with 3 logins. The building part was 1 paragraph, which I'll leave up so you can read it. What kind of matter it is, the conflict questions, the documents they need to send, the consent tick, and all of it landing somewhere Priya can actually look at it. The conflict check is the only part of that form which isn't admin. Before a firm takes you on, they have to be sure they're not already acting for whoever's on the other side of your matter, and getting that wrong is the kind of mistake that ends a practice. So it asks, one more nudge to wire the database up properly and put a real login on the staff side, and what came back is, yeah, that's the form. In a previous life I'd have quoted her £4,000 for that and taken a month over it. There's a security section in the workspace, and I press the button expecting a progress bar, and instead it asks me what I'm actually worried about, whether I want the full audit or just the login, or where the data goes and who can reach it, or a last look before publishing. Which is a fair question, and for this app the answer's easy, because the whole thing is a box that strangers put their passport into. So, where does the data go? Oh, okay, so it's written the whole thing in English. Rather than handing me a rule number and a severity badge, it's told me what would actually happen to a person, which is that the protection is switched on, but the rule underneath it says yes to everybody, so anyone with an account can read every client's documents, and a complete stranger can staple a file onto somebody else's case. That's the sentence I'd have ended up saying to Priya out loud, a month after it went live. I'd much rather read it here. And on the finding there's a button that says, let Chow fix this, which either talks it through with me here, or hands the job to a second agent working alongside, and either way it arrives with the problem already written out. So I'm not sitting there trying to describe a security hole to a chatbot from memory. I'll send it to the second one and read what it's proposing before I let it go, because that's the whole job now, really. You stop typing the code and you start reading what something else typed.
It's doing this on a branch rather than on the thing itself, which matters in about 90 seconds, so keep it in mind.
I once put a 2-line fix straight onto a live client site on a Friday afternoon, a really tiny change, the kind you don't even bother mentioning. And it took their checkout down for the whole weekend, and nobody noticed until Monday because it failed quietly. The fix itself was fine, by the way. What cost them 2 days of sales was that there was nothing whatsoever sat between my keyboard and their customers, and so nobody ever looked at it.
So the fix comes back to the main thing, and it stops at the door instead of walking straight in, because there's a switch in the project settings that says anything a second agent hands back gets read before it's folded in, and I turned that on before I sent the job out. And what opens is a report. What the change actually does, the one file it touches with the rules it rewrites, spelled out underneath in normal sentences. Its own read on how risky that is, which it puts at medium and then explains. And at the bottom, the thing that made it stop and write any of this, which is that somebody is editing the rules on the database. Nothing here is blocking me, and I want to be clear about that because I know how this looks. There's no approval queue, nobody's waiting to sign anything off, and if I want to put it live, it goes live. It's just making sure I know what I'm putting live before I put it live. So I read it and I press approve, and the report stays attached to the change afterwards, which for a firm holding other people's private paperwork is the actual point of the whole screen. If somebody asks in a year what changed on the thing that stores the client documents and what it did to who can reach them, there's a document sitting there with the answer in it, rather than 3 people trying to remember a Tuesday.
People keep asking me whether software built like this is safe enough to hold a client's private things, and I don't think that's got one clean answer that covers every case. What I'd say is that the app I built this morning had a hole in it I hadn't spotted, and I found out about it on a Wednesday, from a screen that had gone and read the actual database, rather than in a year, from Priya, in the worst phone call of her month. That's the part that shifted something for me, that it went and looked at the thing itself instead of reading my own code back to me and agreeing with it. So if you've already built something and it's live and it's got real people's details sitting in it, that's the one to point this at. Go and ask it what's wrong with your thing. You might not enjoy the answer. Links below. Go build something.